Well, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Wide awake? Had a little coffee or something? Great. I'm Richard Frieder. I am the Director of Community Development here at the Hartford Public Library, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here for our program that we're calling Help Wanted, What You Need to Know About Job Training Programs. We're very excited about today's program for a few reasons. One is that this is part of the official launch of the Community Information Hub project, which is a partnership of the Hartford Public Library, the Connecticut News Project, WNPR, and the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. And the purpose of the Hub project is to offer dialogues and forums like this one, where people can discuss important issues and work together towards solutions. We're thrilled about this new partnership, and before I continue, I would like to invite Judy McBride from the Foundation up to say a couple of words.
Thanks so much, Richard. I want to begin by thanking Richard and Tricia Barrett, the library's new community dialogue coordinator, and really everyone who you'll hear from today for all their work in putting together this program. It's great to see all of you today, including my colleagues, so many of my colleagues that I work with. It's Saturday, and it's a beautiful day, and I really appreciate your taking the time to join us here. The Hartford Foundation for Public Giving is really pleased to support the Community Hub project in its work to bring good information, statistics, and a range of data and other information on important community issues that are affecting Greater Hartford residents. The Hub's partners, as Richard mentioned, are the Hartford Public Library, the Connecticut News Project, and WNPR. And with the Foundation support, we have come together to help ensure that this kind of information is easily accessible to everyone and to really allow the community to have voice on these issues and possible solutions. If you didn't get a chance to hear the first forum, which was on May 7th, which the Connecticut News Project and WNPR put together, it's accessible online at the website of WNPR. It was on the skills gap, and this forum is designed to build on that one, so please tune in if you can. I also wanted to say that I'm delighted that we're focusing on jobs today. It's a really critical issue given the persistent unemployment in the region, and so today we have a chance to talk about where the jobs are, what skills are needed, training programs in place that are available, the whole idea that many training programs are infusing basic adult education so folks can bone up on the reading and math that they need, as well as the technical skills. We think it's really important to provide information on where these programs are, and so you're going to hear about that today. All these issues are one that the Foundation is really focused on as part of our strategic efforts called Accelerate Success. And so this kind of event really melds well in what we're trying to do in terms of supporting the community and developing the job skills, adult literacy skills, and education that they need to advance in career pathways. Finally, I just want to say thanks again for being here. You can be a lot of different places on a beautiful Saturday. And I invite you to relax, to have another cup of coffee, and to feel free to ask questions and to share your thoughts, particularly in the small group discussions that are going to take place later on this morning. So hang in there with us. This is your program. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Judy. And we really are excited about working together on the Community Information Hub project. This morning's meeting is also part of the Hartford Matters series within the Hartford Public Library Center for Civic Engagement. And you can read more about both the Community Information Hub project and the Center for Civic Engagement in the program in your blue folder. That's the yellow folded sheet of paper in your blue folder. We're also excited about today's event because we're here to do important business, as Judy was describing. And that is to discuss and share information about jobs and job training programs. Now, I have a couple of questions for you. How many of you came here today because you're currently looking for a job? Okay, quite a few. How many of you came here today because you're involved in offering job training programs? Quite a few. Great. Okay, great. And how many of you came here today for the donuts? Okay. A couple of honest people here in the front row. Okay. Well, no matter why you're here, we've designed the morning so that you will leave with valuable information, maybe a new contact or two, and maybe even a donut. We hope you got off to a great start with the open house out here in the hallway. How about a round of applause for the people who worked hard to make that happen? Thank you, and there will be more time later to visit with the folks out at the tables. Before we start, let's take a quick look at the agenda for today, which again is in that bright yellow paper that you have. In a minute, I'll introduce you to our moderator for the morning, and we'll then hear briefly from several guests who will help us understand the landscape of the job market and of all the job training programs that are available. And there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions and make comments and all of us to engage together. We'll then hear from a couple of people who have recently completed job training programs or are in them now, and they're going to give us their perspective on how this is helping them in their job search. Then we'll have a conversation together about job training programs and how to find them, how to make them even more useful than they are now. And then sometime around noon or a little before noon, we'll give you lunch. So there is such a thing as a free lunch. You get a free donut and a free lunch today. And then finally, you'll have a chance to visit the open house again, as I mentioned. So we have a terrific team of people who are going to lead us through the morning. We're going to meet them in just a couple of minutes. I do want to let you know that we'll be writing up the notes from this meeting and sending them out to all of you, but make sure, please, that we have your email address. And we'll also make them available on our website. We also may have future programs that build on what we do here today. We're interested in offering this kind of event, but we're also interested in working together on long-term solutions. A few quick housekeeping items. In your folder, there is a green sheet of paper, which is an evaluation form. We would greatly appreciate it if you would please just take a minute or two at the end of the program to fill that out and leave it on the sign-in table where you came in. Your feedback will be an enormous help in our making future programs even better than today's program. Also, for those of you who haven't yet discovered it, a very important piece of information. Restrooms are located out the door, down the hall, past the elevator, and on the left. And also, we are videotaping today, so when it comes time for discussion, questions and answers, please use a microphone because we want to capture all of your good ideas as part of the video. Now, to guide us through today's program, we're very fortunate to have a terrific moderator, and that is Ted Carroll, who's the president of Leadership Greater Hartford. Many of you know Ted. He truly is one of the bright lights of Hartford, as is LGH. Yes, Ted, I'm talking about you. And I could go on and on about his accomplishments and skills and qualities, but we are limited on time, so I'm going to invite you to look on the back of the program, again, that brightly colored yellow sheet, for more information about Ted and about all of our presenters today. So thank you so much for coming. I know that we're all going to have a great and interesting and useful time. And now please welcome Ted Carroll.
Well, thank you for that nice ovation and for those lovely words, Richard. I'm glad this is being videotaped. I need to send that to my mom. She'll be both delighted and astonished. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. I am with Leadership Greater Hartford, and Some of you know about the leadership training programs that we offer, and we even have one program that might be of some interest to people in this audience, and that is something called Encore Hartford, which we do with the University of Connecticut for people who are interested in moving from the private sector, perhaps, or into the nonprofit sector. We are in a position to assist you through a training program that we offer each spring. So come see me if that has some interest for you. But that's not my main role here today. My main role is to make sure that others who have far more wisdom on this topic than I will have a chance to share that wisdom with those of you who are seeking jobs and seeking job training opportunities. At the same time, we want to structure this morning in a way that those of you who have different kind of wisdom, that is, you're looking for jobs and you're looking for job training, and you can impart some of what you've learned along the way, whether you've only been at it for a short time or whether you've been at this for a long time. You can inform others who are in this room who are in the business of providing jobs and job training as to how they might be able to do that work better. So I like to position today as more as a genuine dialogue where each of us, all of us, have something to contribute to the conversation, and hopefully something that we can take, something we can learn and build off of as well. My main job today is to make sure, as I said, that all of you have a chance to impart some wisdom to others, and for us to be able to stay on time, because you're already making a pretty significant commitment to be here. The last thing you want to be doing is staying longer than is necessary. So I will make sure that we move the intent in mind. I will stop right here and invite our first speaker to join us. And that will be Scott Gall. He's with the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. If you flip to the back sheet, you'll note that he's the director of the Community Indicators Project at the Hartford Foundation. And he is going to provide you with the overall picture of where we stand relative to the employment and job training arena. Okay, so please welcome Scott Gall.
Thank you, Ted. And thanks to everybody for showing up on a Saturday morning. I really appreciate it. So my job is working on a Community Indicators project, and that means I have to know a little bit about a lot of things. So I'm going to try and give you a little bit of very high-level information, and then we're going to get to the experts who kind of really know what they're talking about on this. If I can bring up the slides. I don't know if they're the... Thank you, Patrick. So I'm going to give kind of a big picture about jobs in the region, unemployment in the region, kind of where people are working, where people are having trouble finding work. Maybe to set the background a little bit, how many people are here from the city of Hartford? How many of you live in the city of Hartford? All right, pretty good showing. For those of you that don't live in the city of Hartford, where are you coming from? Anybody from West Hartford, East Hartford? Got a couple hands. Weathersfield. Who came the furthest? Besides Judy. All right, so we have a little bit of, so I think this is a nice example of kind of how the job market works. You've got some people from Hartford, some people, a pretty good showing of people from outside the city of Hartford, and that's a really reflection of the job market in the region. Patrick, do you have the clicker, or you can run it for me, sorry. Or I can take it if you want. All right, so I don't want to start with the bad news, but let's just kind of get this out of the way. This is, you all know this. I think a lot of you are living it. But there's pretty high unemployment around the country, in the state of Connecticut, and especially in some of the urban centers, especially in the Hartford region. So this is kind of the groundwork. This is why we're here having this conversation. These are unemployment rates for the region. You can see Hartford is at the top. It's about twice the level for the state, so there's about twice as high rate of unemployment in the city of Hartford. And it's higher also in some of the other cities in the region or the inner ring suburbs. So New Britain, Bloomfield, Windsor, East Hartford are all kind of higher than average. And then there's a lot of little towns where their job market is doing a little bit better. Unemployment rate is a little bit lower. So that's kind of the bad news. That's the foundation. I think the good news is really that we're all here today, and in a couple minutes you're going to get to hear from people who, for those of you that are job seekers, are going to maybe help give you a leg up in the job search, tell you about some resources or ways to build a career pathway. For those of you that are working in the sector, this is hopefully a good place to share information or kind of share ideas among different people. But that's where we're starting from. That's the baseline. One of the things that I want to talk about for the Hartford region is not talk about it as individual cities or a bunch of collections of towns. I want to look at where do people who are finding work in the region, where do they actually work? And one of the things that you'll kind of see is that people are finding work a lot in the region, but not always in the city where they live. So the city of Hartford, there are a lot of jobs in the city of Hartford. There's almost as many jobs as there are people in the city of Hartford, if you include, counting little kids, senior citizens, everybody in the city of Hartford. So there's a lot of jobs. But more than 100,000 of those jobs, a lot of those jobs are filled by people who are coming in from outside the city. So there's a lot of commuters coming into the city of Hartford. And there's not that many people who actually live in the city of Hartford and also work in the city of Hartford. So there's a lot of people that live in the city of Hartford who are commuting out of the city. There's about 30,000 people who live in the city of Hartford and commuting out. And that's really the same in basically every town. So the same thing you see for New Britain on the right-hand side. There's fewer jobs overall in New Britain. It's a smaller city. But there's only 6,000 people who kind of live and work in New Britain. There's a lot of people that come into New Britain from outside the city, and there's a lot of people that live in New Britain and commute outside the city. And that's probably the case for most of the people here. I don't know, for those of you that live in the city of Hartford, if you've worked or you're working now, or, if you worked outside the city of Hartford, probably the case is yes. For some of you that are coming from outside the city, if you worked in the city of Hartford, you worked outside the city you lived. So that's really characteristic of this region. A lot of people who are working are finding work in the region, but outside the city in which they live. So if we draw the kind of pie bigger and we take in the whole region, you get a little bit different picture. This is the workforce investment area for those of you from the workforce side. So this is a collection of 30 or 40 towns in the region, includes Hartford, all the inner ring and outer ring suburbs. And if you just look at the circles, it's really like a different picture. So the overlap is a lot bigger. So basically, people that live in this region work in this region, but they don't always work in the town in which they live. And so there's about 367,000 people that both live in Greater Hartford and work in Greater Hartford. And there's people that commute in and there's people that commute out, but it's much smaller than if you look at the individual cities. So one way that I like to think about this is Hartford is a small city. The size of Hartford is about the size of some neighborhoods in New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, big cities, about 125,000 people, which is similar to what a neighborhood would be like. And when you get out to the suburbs and the other smaller towns and cities in the region, they're even smaller. And so if we think about it as kind of a single city, that's really small. But if you draw this pie bigger and you look at it as a region, you can think of it like one big city with a lot of different neighborhoods in it. And if you lived in New York, or if you lived in Los Angeles, it's not crazy to start moving around or looking at that as your community. And so in this sense, we can think of Greater Hartford, this big region, as our community, and there's jobs kind of spread throughout that region. That's how one thing you can think about. So now we start talking about where the jobs are. This is, again, kind of the big picture for Hartford, the region. And different jobs are in different places. I think the next group of people can start telling you more about the different sectors where people are hiring, where the sectors are hiring, how you can route into some of those different job opportunities. But again, at a really high level, jobs are spread throughout this region. It does happen to be the case that sort of the higher wage jobs tend to be in the city of Hartford. That's one of the reasons people commute into the city of Hartford for these jobs. And kind of lower wage, middle skills, and lower skilled jobs are spread throughout the region, and they're basically where people live. So wherever there are people, there's going to be a fair number of job opportunities. And so you see the right-hand map, the sort of blotches are all over the place, and the left-hand map, they're really concentrated mostly in the city of Hartford, some of the other city centers. That's not to say that there aren't good-paying jobs outside of the city, but the most concentration is in the city of Hartford. So that's kind of the big picture. I want to leave the floor to, again, the people who are really experts and are going to help you learn from this conversation. I'm not sure who's up next, but that's what I got for today. Okay.
Scott, thanks very much for offering the big picture, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper now into some of the component parts. So at this time, I want to bring to the table Patrick Flaherty, Sandy Rodriguez and Kim Oliver, if you'd take your seats, please, at the head table. Let me just give quick introductions of all three while they join us. First, Patrick, he's an economist with the Connecticut Department of Labor, and his responsibilities include industry and occupational projections and special research projects. Then we will hear from Sandy Rodriguez, who's the Communications Director of the Capital Region Workforce Partners. And then we will hear from Kim Oliver, who manages Workforce Solutions Collaborative of Metro Hartford. So we're going to begin, Patrick, with you, okay. I believe. And Patrick is, again, with the Connecticut Department of Labor. Please take it away.
All right, thank you. And I was told I have 5 minutes, which kind of reminds me of the gentleman who was in the hospital and was very, very ill, and the doctor told him that unfortunately you only have 5 minutes to live. Would you like me to get you a priest? And the man says, no, I don't want a priest, I want an economist. And the doctor was very surprised and says, why do you want an economist? He says, well, only an economist can make 5 minutes seem like a lifetime. So with that, I'm going to go through, I have a handout in the packet. It looks like this. And I really would advise you to take some look at that, because I'm going to go very quickly through these slides. My email address is at the end of the handout, so if you would like these slides, please send me an email. I'd be happy to send them to you. So we've had a tough few years. There's no question about it. Connecticut lost over 120,000 jobs during the Great Recession. We have since recovered about half of those. In the most recent month, we had 6,000 job increase in Connecticut, which is actually pretty good. And I just looked at the towns where Hartford residents are most likely to work. You can see that list in the handout. I'll go through it in a second. And in those towns, our largest industries are here: healthcare, finance, manufacturing, education are the largest industries. They aren't necessarily the ones that are most likely to hire, however, and I'll get to that in a second. So this is the list of the towns where Hartford residents are most likely to work. And then, as you'll see on the handout, and I'll go through the list here, in each of those towns, I put the industries that grew the most in the past year. So in Hartford itself, hospitals and security services, two very different industries, were the ones that showed the most job growth last year. In West Hartford, it was ambulatory healthcare and professional organizations were the two industries that grew the most. In East Hartford, it was architectural and engineering services and business, computer, and management training. So the point I'm making is that when you're thinking about looking for a job, you can be creative in the different kinds of industries that are growing, and you also need to think about perhaps looking in a slightly different geography than you were planning on. Bloomfield is the next town that Hartford residents work, and notice the two are insurance carriers and warehousing and storage. The two industries that grew the most in Bloomfield, again, two industries very different from each other. One of the things that I get asked all the time is, where are the jobs? What industry should I go into? And my answer is always very frustrating to people when I say the theme is there is no theme. But the data tell us that. Insurance carriers, warehousing, and storage. Two very different industries, both growing in the town of Bloomfield last year. Farmington, employment services and management of companies. And you can see the detailed lists on this handout. I won't go bore you with it completely. Now, we also look at hiring. So this was the net increase in jobs is how I made the list. But there's also the question of hiring. Hiring is different than the net. During the terrible recession that we had, there were some months in our country where jobs declined by 800,000 a month. However, in even the worst month of the worst recession since World War II, in this country, 4 million people started a new job. Hiring and separations happen all the time. As we would say in economics, the flow is much bigger than the net. 4 million people started a new job in this country during the worst month of the worst recession since World War II. And so this data tells us who was hiring in the Hartford area for folks that just had a high school diploma or a GED. And as you can see, almost 3,000 people a quarter in the Hartford area were hired in the healthcare industry, even if they just had a high school diploma and didn't have anything beyond that. For folks that, this is less than high school, for folks that had some college or some training, the healthcare hiring was hundreds more per quarter. The finance hiring was twice as much for folks with just some training beyond high school than those with a high school diploma. Again, the details you can see in the charts on my handout, and I'd be happy to send you these slides if you really want to study them. The final thing I just want to say is that we have a lot of tools for job search available through the Department of Labor. Sandy is going to talk about some of them. We're going to do a demonstration. I have made a lot of slides showing you some of the tools that we have. I don't have time to go through those right now, but again, if you, after you see the demonstration, if you really feel like you want to take a look at some of the things in some detail, please, again, send me an email. I'll be happy to send you the slides. And I'm going to end, oh, my timer's up. I'm going to end with this thought. All of us sometimes find ourselves in a situation we do not expect to be in. That's certainly been the case in my life, and I'm sure in all of yours. And what we here at the Department of Labor and all the people involved in this program and at the library are trying to do is help all of us get off of the branch, onto the ground, and on with our lives. And anything that we can do at the Department of Labor to assist that, we want to be able to do that. You know, we've heard a lot of buzzwords about thinking outside the box. I prefer to think outside the peach can. And so if you do want to get in touch with me, feel free to contact me anytime.
Patrick, that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Great.
Patrick, before you go anywhere, we're going to have opportunities at the end of the panel discussion to engage in some questions and answers. But is there anything right now that you need Patrick to clarify from what he's just said? Yes, please.
Patrick, it would be awesome if you could share the pieces that you were telling us verbally about who needs a high school diploma or a GED or a certification or for the different job sectors. That would be kind of a cool.
Well, what I said was that...
Patrick, would you just grab one of those microphones?
Absolutely. We're trying to keep on time, so I was trying to get Sandy's slides. Multitasking here. So what I was saying is that when you look at the data, whether it's wages, and we have very detailed wage data on our website, whether you look at the amount of hiring, you look at the employment growth, there is no question that the more training and the more education you have, the greater your success is in the labor market. And what I highlighted in the presentation was that just comparing folks with just a high school diploma versus those that have some training beyond that, whether it's a community college or some sort of job training program. And we see that although the charts look very similar, when you really study them, you see, gee, we had hundreds more people hired in the healthcare industry in the Hartford area last year who had something beyond high school, not a college degree, not a bachelor's, but something beyond high school, and they found jobs in the Hartford area. Similar in the finance industry, which is the second largest industry in this region. Again, if you look at the chart, it looks like, oh, they're about the same. But in fact, when you study it, you see that it's hundreds more folks in the Hartford area were hired in the finance industry last year who had something beyond high school, but didn't necessarily have college, than just those that had a high school diploma. And so the data support what the efforts of this program are trying to do, which is to help folks connect with some of the job training opportunities that are available in the Hartford area. The data support the idea that they do result in more people being hired.
Great. Thank you. One other quick question?
Actually, can I go back and ask Scott a question?
You may, and that will free Patrick to do another job of setting it up. And may I point out, Patrick, thank you for that cartoon at the end, but it reminds me of one of my favorite quotations. And remember the days of the pocket calendar, you know, and you'd open it up and there'd be a saying of the week? Mm-hmm. One that I recall was one that said, don't be afraid to go out on the limb, for that is where you'll find the fruit. I never thought you'd find a can of peaches. Right? So, great. So, a question of Scott.
So, Scott, in the unemployment visual slide,
Yep.
does that include discouraged workers?
it's a good question. Let me defer to my colleagues from the.
So the question was, did the slide refer to statistics that would have involved discouraged workers as well?
So those are still in the labor force, I guess. Which is
No, discouraged workers would not be in the official that unemployment rate. We know that there are.
Again, Patrick, because we're trying to videotape it, please use the microphone.
I'm sorry. We know that there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of people in the state who are both unemployed or who, for whatever reasons, are not currently looking for work, who would be looking for work if the economy improved. We know those people are out there, and we are, we see the data of them. When we officially calculate the unemployment rate, we only calculate people who don't have a job, who are actually looking for work. And my boss actually wants to say something, so I better let him.
Nice and loud, because we don't have a microphone on you.
Just to put that in perspective, we do have a measure of unemployment that does include discouraged workers and people who would have given up or would take a job if they could find one. If our state unemployment rate is about 8%, that larger measure is about 14%.
And if you have a kind of a guesstimate of Hartford, what that would mean?
The gap would be about the same. I don't recall the numbers up there for Hartford. I think you were around 12%.
It was about
15.
twice as high as the rest of the state.
Talking as large as 20.
Okay, so we're going to move on. Thanks, Patrick, for helping to scope out what the job situation is going to look like. We're going to ask Sandy Rodriguez now to focus on the training programs that might be available to help bridge wherever people might be now to where they might be to position themselves for some of those jobs that are out there. So, Sandy?
Thank you. Thanks, Ted. First of all, it's great to be here, although I have to say, Saturday morning, really? My name is Sandy Rodriguez. I work with Capital Workforce Partners, and I'm trying to make my clicker work here. And I've been asked to pinch hit for the team at Capital Workforce Partners this morning. So it's a little difficult to find somebody to speak to this topic on a Saturday morning. Job training also is a huge topic, so we're only going to be talking super high level here. And then I hope that you have an opportunity to meet. We have our partners at Connecticut Works outside at the open house who can speak specifically to more of the training programs that we'll talk about this morning. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to talk to them. Can you guys stand up for a sec? Great, thanks. So we're supposed to talk about training for middle skills jobs, and industry experts have defined that type of training as at least 2 years of education or training past high school, and Patrick referred to this earlier, leading to a vocational credential, industry certification, or your first 2 years of college, plus the basic skills that are needed to succeed in education. And at Capital Workforce Partners, we think that would also be added by, in addition to those criteria, the core career competencies that you need to succeed in any job, whether it be low skill, middle skill, high skill, and those career competencies are the basic skills aforementioned, as well as computer literacy, customer service, problem solving and decision making, interpersonal communication skills, personal qualities, job seeking skills like getting your resume and interviewing skills, and financial literacy. Employers define those competencies as required for any job in the market today. If you want to learn more about the career competencies, I invite you to visit the careercompetencies.org website that was generously funded by the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving and Bank of America. Give you a lot more information about how you can get smarter about those specific core competencies. So I'm supposed to talk about where the training is. Where's Waldo? Where do you get this type of training? And the first place to start is your Connecticut community colleges. There are 4, I'm going to talk about specifically the North Central region. There are 4 community colleges in North Central Connecticut, as Nuntuck up in Enfield, Manchester Community College in Manchester, Tunxis out in Farmington, and right here in Hartford, Capital Community College. There's also your state schools and universities all have programs that are geared to middle skills as well. They have the full 4-year college degree, but they also have certificate and associate degree programs at their institutions. In addition to those schools, you have your nonprofit schools like Goodwin College doing some incredibly great stuff across the river in East Hartford. And you have online college opportunities like that provided by Charter Oak State College. And there's a ton of community resources available for you that offer some type of workforce development or training, like CREC, the Capital Region Education Council. Got a lot of acronyms in our world, so. There's your trade schools. You're going to get your technical skills from trade schools. And here's just a sampling of them, but there's a wonderful website, trade-schools.net. If you're wondering which trade schools offer which programs to get you into which type of jobs, that's the site to go to learn more about these trade schools. Fantastic partnership between the state's 5 workforce investment boards and the Connecticut Department of Labor, along with all of those community resource partners we were talking about before, because we all work together toward a common goal of getting job seekers jobs and getting businesses the talent they need. So it's actually a whole bunch of entities, including the Department of Labor and the workforce boards like Capital Workforce Partners, trying to get you a job and trying to get businesses to be economically competitive. So that's what Connecticut Works is. There's a little bit of confusion in the marketplace. There's also, well, does everybody know there's a little Connecticut Works satellite downstairs right here in the library? Yeah, good, because that's there for your convenience. And the wonderful thing about that satellite is it's also there for you in the evening hours, and it's there for you on Saturdays, which we can't do in all of our other statewide operations. So specialty programs, the Mortgage Crisis Job Training Program, if you're at risk of losing your home, the Mortgage Crisis Job Training Program is there to help you keep your home in the short term, but also give you the skills you need so that you are able to make the wages that you need to hold on to your home for the long term. Jobs Funnel is for construction-related, trade-related skills. The Step Up program, I spoke to Shelley this morning. You're going to sign up for the Step Up program. That's a great thing for both job seekers and employers. Employers get a break on paying the wages to bring people and grow their business, and the unemployed get a door in to companies. So Step's a wonderful program, again, operated in partnership with the Department of Labor and the state's workforce boards. And then we have, if you're interested in healthcare, Capital Workforce Partners has the Health Careers Project, which provides specific technical training and for people interested in becoming registered nurses, medical coders, or health information technology specialists. And all of this, all of the specialty programs, all of the general assistance, it's all accessible through Connecticut Works. But the purpose of Connecticut Works is it's your one stop. You can go there for all of your needs. So we hope you join us at Connecticut Works. There's a resource list that looks like this in your handouts. It will give you the email, at least not the email, the website addresses of all of the entities that we spoke about this morning, as well as some of the search tools that Patrick mentioned. And I don't know if we have an opportunity to walk through those search tools. Probably not. Let's at least show the screenshots. Two really good search tools. If you have a specific thing in mind that you want to do and you want to find out what in the area can provide you that specific training, we could take 10 hours to talk about that to you now, or we could put you in front of a computer with a search tool in front of you and you can go and research it yourself. The first one is the Connecticut Department of Labor's Education and Training Connection. That's the email address right there. And again, that website address, and that website address is in your packet. But you can put in what you're interested in and just click the button. You'll find exactly where the schools are in the state that provide that training. You'll find out if they're Workforce Investment Act eligible to see if perhaps you can get a scholarship for those programs. And you can really search through a number of different ways. It's a wonderful tool on the Connecticut Department of Labor's website. And then the next one, My Skills, My Future. You just simply type in your current job. It's going to then bring up a number of other jobs that are similar to that job in terms of skills, and then tell you how many jobs are in the area, and again, where is the training available in the area to get you what you need to be successful in getting those jobs. So, 2 great search tools. There's a couple of more in your handouts. And I hope you take some time with them because they're fascinating to learn what goes on in the state and how much there really is available. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. And you may have touched on this, but isn't there a Connecticut Works outpost downstairs on the first floor of the Hartford Public Library? And I happen to know there are roughly 1,500 computers available, or maybe a little less than that. But for those of you who don't have access to a computer, one of the great services of the library, of course, is the availability of computer technology. So you can do those searches here at the library. Before we move on to Kim, is there any quick clarifying question that anyone would like to pose to Sandy? If not, I would like Kim to now speak because she's going to pull everything together for us. She heads up the Workforce Solutions Collaborative, which I know the United Way has been very instrumental in helping to form. Speak to us, Kim. Enlighten us. Inspire us.
Oh, good morning. I won't give you a false promise. I'm truly going to pull everything together, but I'm going to do my best to provide some information and do touch upon the themes that you've heard today, whether it be from Scott, Patrick, or Sandy. Really, bottom line is that you want a good job with good wages because you need to take care of yourself and your family. Something that most of us in the business know is called the Self-Sufficiency Standard, because it's not just about getting a job, right? You want to be able to have that one job where you can make ends meet. So we have this standard where, based on where you live, they look at how much is it for you to actually pay for your rent, your groceries, etc., and what is the mix of your family. Do you have 2 kids? Do you have 4 kids? Or your kids, certain ages, etc., and say about how much you need to make per hour in a month or over a year in order to make ends meet. So the work that my group does is really focused on how do we help you get that job in particular. We do know, and you heard it already today to some degree, is that you need great education, skills, and it really is connected to long-term sufficiency, bottom line. And no surprise, if you do have additional barriers, that it makes it more difficult to actually achieve self-sufficiency. So a lot of us, the Workforce Solutions, Capital Workforce Partners, Department of Labor, Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, we're doing partnerships more and more. Now the graphic here is a simple illustration of what we do at Workforce Solutions. We believe in getting everyone around the table, and we are a collaborative, which means that we're going to bring our strengths to bear and hopefully have others help us where we may have a little bit of a weak spot. I think what's really important is the fact that we start with employers. And we're not the only ones doing this today, so this is not that unique. But we figure we should ask the employers, are you hiring? If you're hiring, for what jobs? And for those jobs, what skills are you looking for? So we've been having a lot of conversations with employers in particular. And the employers have basically told us they're having difficulty finding qualified workers, which sounds amazing because there are all these people out of work, and yet there's these jobs that go unfilled. And it's like, why aren't we connecting this really well? Well, they say it happens for 2 reasons. The first one, and you've heard it already today, people don't have the required basic skills. You heard, Sandy say you have to have these basic skills for not just the job, but for training that goes along with that job. So you're not going to be able to be successful. And then the second thing we hear is about hands-on experience. Many times people need hands-on experience to complement what you learn in a classroom. And the other way to look at it is that from an employer perspective, they're looking for people to demonstrate their mastery of what they just learned. So we don't have that, it makes it difficult for them. So when we look at the employers and we say, okay, these skill sets, and this is just following the U.S. Department of Labor's competency model, You heard about competencies already today. The idea is you can bucket skills in these different buckets, but they're layered on top of each other. So you have that personal effectiveness skill. That means you have integrity, professionalism, interpersonal skills. You have academics, math, reading, writing, workplace readiness, teamwork, communication skills, customer service skills. And then you start having those industry skills. That means they're general industry skills, maybe not so specific to your occupation. So if you're in manufacturing or the building trades, you're looking at something like safety. And then finally, you have those occupational skills that are obviously very job specific. Okay, so for me, how I'm trying to pull all this together, and we have this collaborative of people coming around the table, figuring what we can do. We go, where is the big opportunity here for people to get to sustaining wages that's going to change their lives, their families' lives, and hopefully we'll have very thriving communities as a result. In particular, let me see if I could work this out. Oh, look, it's definitely working here. And this is the worst thing you could do, is give me this kind of tool. We'll be doing this for the rest of the presentation. Lower skill jobs, middle skill jobs, high skill jobs. You've heard this a little bit already. I thought Sandy did a great job breaking it down. Lower skill jobs, that means you have a high school diploma or less. Middle skill, that means that you have more than a high school diploma, but you do not have a 4-year college degree. And then finally, high skill jobs, you have a 4-year college degree or above. I think what's important to note here is that lower skill jobs, only 20% of our state jobs are in this bucket. Yet when you start looking at our numbers, 39% of our adults have the education attainment that will fall into this bucket. You can see it's not matching. You're seeing, as you look at unemployment rates, these are just based on people's skill sets. It's 15%, which is pretty high. If you don't have the high school diploma, by the way, you're moving from 15% to about 22, 23%. It increases drastically. Middle skills, we have the biggest chunk of jobs, you'll notice for Connecticut, is actually in the middle skill bucket. But we don't have a lot of adults in this place. This is where we have this great opportunity to move some of these folks over here. Again, you have unemployment rate is somewhat on par, a little higher. Part of this is going back to this issue of people don't always know where jobs are, etc. And then finally, in high skill, you see that it's pretty much lined up, and therefore you have a much lower unemployment rate. So when you look at our continuum services that all of us try to provide to folks, you see that we do try to touch on as much as we can in terms of the basic skills, workplace readiness, that technical training. I'd added on there, we're focused on hands-on experience. You also heard about Step Up, which is a great way to do that. And then job placement support, because it's not about training just for training, right? You want to get a job, so we got to put all that in. Now, the cool thing about Workforce Solutions is the majority of our money is private money, so we get to go places that where maybe some public funding can't go. We get to fill in gaps, connect people to different programs, because what we're finding is you have to meet where people are. So many of us were probably somewhere along this continuum. But not only that, we need help with support services. If you're not employed, you may have an issue with childcare. You don't have enough to pay somebody to take care of your child, even going through the training program. Or if your car breaks down, you don't have the money to fix the car. You may have a health issue that you need to get some assistance with. So a support service becomes something that's really critical to us. And the other thing of Workforce Solutions, remember, we're trying to help move some of those folks in that lower skill spot over to middle skills. Well, we're doing that, I'm going to keep going, at basically no cost to our participants. And that's, again, if you have to meet certain eligibility requirements in order for that to happen. But we realize, Sandy mentioned it earlier, just because the training program exists doesn't mean you have the money to go ahead and pay for the program. So for Workforce Solutions, this is a quick slide. If you want to know more information about our programs, you can visit us at our table. But bottom line, what we did is we looked at 3 industries in particular where we thought was the greatest opportunity for folks to move from the lower skill to sustaining wages with the middle skill bucket. So energy, utilities, healthcare, and manufacturing. Which you'll notice I have some grayed out because we did close some programs more recently. But at energy utilities, we do, and you'll see this is nicely lined up, by the way, by our competency model. We have some technical training fund money available that leads to paid internships. Again, want more information, come visit us at our table. In healthcare, I had grayed this out because it was closed. We just got some really great news yesterday, which means we're going to reopen this program likely, the Enhanced CNA program. So if you want to learn more about that, come to us and take our business card, whether it be myself or Katie, and then send us an email saying they're interested in that program, and we will connect you to the right person. And then finally, manufacturing is also still open as well. So if you're not here today, and people say, where would I find more information? You go to CT Works. You're hearing a bit of a theme here. Go to CT Works. We're connected to CT Works as well as all these other programs, opportunities, services. It's truly one-stop shopping. Our program may not be something that's a fit for you, or you may need our program with something else. So definitely stop at CT Works as well as the satellite site here at the library. And I'll close by saying, again, we're Workforce Solutions. That means we're a funders collaborative and a public-private partnership. Above our logo are our funders, which we really appreciate, including the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. And below our logo are our key stakeholders. We were smart enough to figure we needed more than just funding. We needed some smart people to help us address this appropriately. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share information with this morning, and I hope this has clarified the issue a little bit. Thank you.
Kim, thank you very much. That was very clear, and as did Sandy and Patrick, covering a lot of material in a short period of time. And I think we're going to take advantage of the offer I think you made that you're going to be available and people at your table will be available to help answer some questions that you might have. So in the interest of time, let's just pause here, because sometimes these programs, particularly at such a high level, and we throw a lot of terms around and so forth, it might be a little hard to track. So we've invited a couple of people who've actually have recently been part of a search and of a training to kind of share a little bit about their own story. Maybe you'll be able to identify with it. Maybe there'll be some differences. But perhaps there are some pieces that we can glean from their stories as well. So we have, first of all, I'm going to invite Travis Rose to come up, who he just gave me a quick snapshot of the kind of work that he's been doing. Travis, you can stand up or sit down, whatever your pleasure is. And he'll give you just a sense of his journey, and maybe it'll inspire something in all of us. Meet Travis Rose.
Good morning. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm actually a mid-career transition person, right? So how many of you are in that boat? You're like, you did something for a little while, you were kind of unhappy, and you're like, I want to do something a little different, right? So my story, my early career before my transition, right? So I was in education, and then I managed larger statewide programs at the Connecticut State Department of Ed. Implemented all kinds of things, right? And I said, after years of this, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I miss the widgets. I miss making things and putting things out there. So I always had an interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? And if you hear that in a global scope, those are individuals that, that get really their hands in manufacturing and things of that nature. I was always interested in quality improvement, of taking an organization, studying the processes, making them better, and then ensuring that everyone was happy, right? Well, as I made my transition, I was like, man, I really need some assistance finding some help. You make the transition, sometimes you haven't even did a resume in 20 years, right? It was really hard to do. So I went to Connecticut Works. Connecticut Works, there was a center in New Britain in which individuals actually help you. So I had my old resume out, and they looked at it and were like, oh my God, this is like, oh man. You need to help this out a little bit here, right? So I worked with a counselor, and they helped me through the entire process. And they have workshops and available to you as a participant that are free. So you just walk into the center, sign up to lists, go through the whole thing. You get your resume already done, and they walk through. And as I sat down with the counselor, the first thing it says, what are you interested in? how many of us really have to scratch our head and think about that for like 1 second? Like, I don't really know. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, right? So as I thought about it, I told him that I was really interested in continuous improvement, specifically around about healthcare and manufacturing, right? Especially in advanced manufacturing areas. So they guided me to 2 programs. The first program was the TCAP program, right? And that was the technology education and advanced program piece. The second part of that was the quality improvement program to be a Lean Six Sigma certified person that studies all of the processes improvement, right? So I said, well, are there scholarships available? And of course they said, yes. So as I walked through this whole process, I attained a scholarship, which was really wonderful, and it helped me transition into attaining these skills. The TCAP program was really wonderful because sometimes you didn't have industry standard certification. So you walk out in the industry doesn't know who you are from a can of paint. They look at your resume and you're like, well, I don't know if you're certified or qualified or not. So as I went through the TCAP program and passed these examinations to become a certified production technician, it lended credibility to the resume, right? That's quite possible too. So, on the second path, the Quality Six Sigma program, which was a really interesting one, was through the Institute of Technology and Business Development through Central Connecticut State University, right? So that was a really tough program. If you're interested in mathematics and statistics, I think the economists in the room, and I have a bachelor's in mathematics and a master's in information technology and stuff, but the statistics around about being a certified black belt Six Sigma person is pretty significant. But if you actually want to take the challenge, I welcome it to anybody, right? Any takers? Anybody like algebra? No? All right. So, I actually taught mathematics for years. It was a hoot, right, for secondary stuff. So, once the program was actually finished, I landed an internship at a hospital, right? And the first part of the hospital piece was to really study the process around about healthcare. And I think you guys are all familiar with like the Obamacare stuff that's coming up and things of that nature. And of course, Hartford Hospital Medical Group has a significant amount of changes happening right now. So the industry-specific pieces of finding jobs within healthcare and in manufacturing was a challenge to me, and I liked it. So how many of you heard, networking? How many of you heard this? Take it seriously. It really is 100%, well, all right, 99.9%. All right, about networking. So as much as you possibly can. So let's tie the knots together, right? Here we go. So mid-transition, you're like, you got tired. I went to the Connecticut Works spot in New Britain. I think there's one in Vernon and other parts of Connecticut. Get your resume polished up. Take some of those workshops that they offer you for free. Be serious about them. Show them up. Listen to the techniques. They're really wonderful. Once you do that, identify the program that you want or you're interested in, and don't give up. Be very diligent about this work. Once your diligence actually demonstrates itself, there are going to be people that expand your network. They're going to know who you are. Sooner or later, if you go to the Connecticut Work Center and you're only there once every 5 months, they don't know you from a can of paint. But as soon as you start showing up regularly, what do you think happens to your network? Okay. 99.9% networking. Okay. That's my story.
Thank you. Travis, we appreciate that. It's a great story. And your partner in the back did a great job of assisting to tell it. And to pick up on one of the themes that Travis offered, I'll recall some piece of wisdom a colleague of mine offered to me a long time ago. She said, networking is far better than not working. So that may be one way to remember that main theme. I want to, at this time, also call up Gladys Hairston. Her story is different, and she's just emerging from one of those training programs, and I believe she also has something wonderful to share with us. So please welcome Gladys Hairston.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank God for the gift of the program I just completed and the opportunity to share my story with you today. I began the process of this program with the sole purpose of getting training and getting a job right away. And I feared that my skills were outdated and I needed more training. And so I went to CT Works and I asked them, could you please help me? I want some training because I feel that I've been out of work for a long time now and I need more skills. And I was referred to the program that I just completed. And someone wanted to know if I was nervous about starting over again and getting new skills. And I must say, I didn't get nervous in this program until I saw the females dropping out of the program because I thought they was going to be my strength and my anchor. And they dropped out and I was so hurt. And for the first 2 weeks or so, the men in the class gave me a very, very hard time. And I just broke down in tears one day and told my afternoon teacher, I don't know if I can complete this. And she gave me a pep talk, and she was saying, stay focused on the prize. Stay focused on your purpose for being there and not trying to win a popularity contest. And so I gave up trying to be popular in the class and well-liked by everybody and stayed focused. I was there because I wanted new skills. I was there because my goal is to get a job where I can be of service, where people will appreciate my skills, and I will enjoy coming to work. Because at my age, I want to enjoy coming to work. And after I cried and poured my heart out to her. I said, you know what? When I cry, I get stronger. So I became more determined to complete this program, and I did. And the thing that I learned is if I wanted to be successful, I have to look at myself. I have to do my soul searching. And my employers in the past have told me they loved my work. I was a good employee, but your tardiness is going to bring you down. And so I was in a program. You could only be tardy twice or miss only 2 days and you were out. And I thank God for the discipline and the challenge because I want to overcome that empathy in myself. What's the point of getting new skills and trying to get a job and yet lose it because of my own imperfections, and that could be corrected? And I made a goal to learn how to get to that training on time, and that meant habits at home had to change. I had to stop staying up late watching TV and thinking I can get there on time and the next day wake up in time. I had to start eating right and exercising and getting plenty of rest. And I was waking up rested every morning and I had all this extra time to get there. But I said, no, the prize is to get there on time and complete this program successfully. And I did, and I got there on time. I did, and so it was like I was just so grateful that they put these demands on me because no one really required that of me before. It said, you need new skills. And yes, I need new skills, but it's much more than that. It's so much. A job is being of service. It's caring about the people that you're working with and getting the job done. And I always knew my employer said, you get the job done, work on this area, and I made it. I graduated 2 days ago, and I am hopeful. I was telling my worker, Debbie, who was wonderful, and my teacher, Fong, that I thanked them for getting me through it. I needed those women as an anchor, and I decided that, I can't let things hold me back anymore. I have to do the personal growth and deal with things. And they were just great. It was just an excellent program, and I was glad that my confidence got stronger, and I really appreciate women in the workforce now. Men, too, because some of the men came around, and they were saying, we're going to get you through this, and they became my cheerleader, and it's ended up being a very positive experience, and I'm so grateful. Hope I don't cry, because I'm proud of myself because I did it, and I was around people who understood. The people that were training us, they truly understood what our needs were, and they helped us along the way, and they made me a success, and I'm grateful. And in closing, I have to say thank you, CT Works, because I came to you and you listened to me and you directed me to real help. And I'm grateful for everyone that's here today and everyone that's been part of my job-seeking process. And have a good life.
Gladys, thank you. Yes, yeah, we have maybe a minute or two for questions of either Gladys or Travis, but we'll make these a very quick exchange. Please, a question of Gladys.
Gladys, what were you trained to do, and what or is the job that you're
Okay,
looking for?
I was in a science background, so I wanted to become an energy auditor when I saw about the green technology jobs, and I always was interested in the environment. And I thought being an energy auditor would be the perfect thing for me because I did have a real estate background too, and I love going into houses and appraising houses and doing. And so I was interested in that until my director told me, you know, Gladys, you got to go up in attics and see dead animals and stuff. You have to go down in the basement. I said, all right, I'm terrified of mice, live or dead. Energy auditor is out. And so, and so I told her, you know what, water treatment. I'm interested in water treatment and testing because I was a chemist. And it had my interest. Because I just love the environment. I just feel like I'm connected to nature in a very special way. And it just appealed to me. And so I told my my director that I would like to do a paid internship right now to get hands-on training and have some income coming in. And she says she's going to try to find for me. Yeah.
Good. Great.
Oh, the CBIA training program, the energy-related. Yeah, I got my national certification for the national for the enhancement of math skills to go into the energy program, and they're great. I would recommend everybody go through CBIA and Workforce Solutions. I just met them, and they're great too. They got me through today, so. They're the greatest.
Good. TA and Gladys, you'll be able to stick around for a little while longer because maybe in small group conversation and in the informal dialogue that happens over lunch, we'll be able to probe their stories a little more deeply. But thank you both. I'm going to call upon, yes, one last round of applause to our volunteers who both have just made it very real for us this morning. Thanks so much for that. In a moment, I'm going to ask Cedric Miles to come up here and describe for you what we're going to be doing next. But to save him a little bit of the logistics, I'm going to invite at this point, there are about 40 or 50 of us here. We're going to break into small groups in a little bit. And if I could, just for those of you who would consider themselves more job seekers, if you would just stand for a moment, those who are seeking a job or job training, if you could stand. Okay, this is great. And if you could, we're going to count off 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? So I'm going to ask you to count out 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then I'm going to ask you to remember something very important. I'm going to ask you to remember that number, okay? Because there'll be a few minutes that passes before we actually break into your teams, okay? So beginning up front, your number would be
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
awesome. Great. Thanks. Now, for those people who are going to be able to be here for the next 45 minutes or so who are in positions of offering jobs or job training, if you would stand, any other resource people here who are in the room who could be part of our small group, good. We're going to be about evenly divided. This is terrific. So if you could count off 1, 2, 3, and 4, because what we'll want to have is a good mix of people, okay? And I think we'll be able to achieve that. So beginning with Judith.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
1.
2, 3, 4. 1.
3, 4. 1. 2, 4.
Okay. 3. 1. Okay, now remember your numbers, okay? And then we'll break ourselves into 4 groups in just a few minutes. But to introduce this part of the session, I'd like to have Cedric Miles, who is working at the Hartford Foundation right now. And he is what we call a Proteus Fund Diversity Fellow, who's been working very hard on this area and has been part of the planning team to bring today together. So please welcome our good friend and colleague, Ced Miles.
Thank you. And I'd just like to thank Gladys for that beautiful testimony. It actually really sets us up for a great conversation. Raise your hand if you've ever heard the phrase, conversations are a two-way street. Very familiar. You've probably told it to someone before when you wanted them to listen to you. And I'd like to also just recognize all the collaborators on this community hub. You've had economists, workforce experts, data experts, and those with the personal experience of transitioning through skills programs to give a lot of information to us today. So the two-way street part of that is now we're going to get information from you all about the best ways to create and sustain these programs from your point of view. And can you hit that slide for me? Kim talked a lot about this earlier in a much more beautiful PowerPoint presentation than mine. I wish I had known. I wouldn't have even tried. But she talked about all of the very important support services. And sometimes this is a part of the conversation that gets a little bit lost. Just like all of the people who have meaningful jobs that they enjoy, people who are looking for jobs and looking for work have complicated lives too. Everybody does. And they're parts of our life that sometimes make it complicated for us to take advantage of programs. So it's not enough to just say, here's where a program is, why don't you come out? Oh, you didn't come out, you must not want to have a good job. It's much more complicated than that, and Kim also spoke about what some of those support services are. And Gladys talked about part of her success being the coaching that she received. And so if that's an integral part of your success in the program, just like adequate transportation, contextual learning, one-stop services, and of course childcare and proper hours of operation for you to even be able to take advantage of those programs, those are things that you can inform all of these experts on. And so what we're going to do is going to break into those groups that Ted has already helped us to organize, and we're going to spend the next 40 to 45 minutes giving input on how to better these support services so that all of the experts and everybody who's organizing around filling this skills gap can use this information to inform their programs. If you look in your packet, you'll see two worksheets. And do you mind going back to the first slide for me? Thank you. You'll see two worksheets, and we're going to basically answer two big questions and three big questions. Now, I think we can just divide it, since we have 4 groups, we can divide it into groups 1 and 2 and into groups 3 and 4, how we answer these worksheets. Just for sake of time, there's a yellow one and there's a white one. The white one says worksheet 1 at the top, the yellow says worksheet 2. The big question on worksheet 1 is how can we make sure more people in your area know about job training programs that are available? Now, you all are here today, but then there are others who did not have access or did not come across information even about this program today. So you can tell us how you found out about it and how we might be able to better advertise, and all of the collaborating partners might be able to better advertise for their skills programs from where you live. And so we're going to take some moments to answer that question. And at the end of that worksheet, you'll also see a list of trainings that have been helpful to you in the past and how you found out about it. So all the facilitators, I want you to guide these groups, allow them the free time to just answer the questions and guide these groups through answering this part of the worksheet for groups 1 and 2. For groups 3 and 4, the yellow worksheet. The question is, we all have important priorities in our life. What support services should training programs provide to help meet those different needs? An example of this might be support or information about child care options. If you have to take care of your children, if you have to take care of others' children, it's going to impact the time that you have to take advantage of programs. What information can you give to these collaborating partners on how to take that into account? And an example of answering the first question about how to get people in your area to know about job training programs is host informational sessions at local churches and temples. We know people gather at their churches during different times during the week. that would be a great place to give people information. So those are the two questions that we're going to tackle today. And again, remember at the bottom of every worksheet, it's just a little poll asking about trainings that have been helpful to you in the past and how you found out about them. We're going to deal with these questions. And if you finish with the first worksheet and you want to go ahead and start on the second worksheet, facilitators, go right ahead and do that. Okay, but we want to tackle one at a time so we can get a good survey of answers before the 45 minutes is up. And I think that's about it. Am I missing anything else before we get started?
No, you're not missing anything said, but in the interest of making sure that we complete our work on time, we're actually going to reduce the amount of small group time from 45 minutes that we had planned down to closer to 30 minutes. So, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
Yes.
I work for Catholic Charities in Hartford, Connecticut, and what I do is Inspire Job Club. And I'm basically here like to network with other people, so I don't know what group I'm for.
Either one, wherever you feel comfortable.
Okay. And where you fit in. All right, well, let's take advantage of the time. So we can go ahead and segregate into your groups right now, and I'll give you a 5-minute warning before it's time for us to end.
And let me help with that. So, remember those of you who said one earlier, if you'd stand at this time, and we're going to ask that you follow Judith McBride, who is going to walk across the hall into an empty room, and you can have your conversation led by Judith. Okay, and you will be working on workshop sheet number 1, Judith, okay?
The white sheet.
Of course, if you want to move on to workshop sheet number 2, you're welcome to do that if time allows. So, those who said 2, great. Would you please...
I'll take this group.
Follow Cedric. Please go into that corner. I would invite there are some chairs there. I would grab some chairs from the back and just circle up. Okay, those of you who are in group 2. Where's my friend Lou? If you would lead people into this corner for those who are on group 3. Okay? And Lou, you and your members will tackle workshop sheet number 2, okay? Follow Lou over there, please. And those who are in 4 will go in the back, and I'll facilitate our conversation, and we'll also start with worksheet number 2. We'll be in conversations for about 30 minutes. When we feel like we've exhausted the topic, we'll then move on and grab some lunch and come back here to share a little bit more about what we've learned. Okay? The facilitator from each team or someone the facilitator might have designated will be asked just to give a couple of thoughts on the worksheet that they were primarily assigned, or maybe any other additional thoughts that might have jumped to the other sheet. We've got a few minutes. We want to hear from one another. We will collect that information and summarize it, synthesize it, and get it out to everybody so you have the benefit of each other's wisdom. Cedric Miles. Ced is going to lead us through the last part of this, but be prepared to... I think it will be best if those who are going to be spokespeople kind of come forward so that you can be heard, both today and through the use of video. So, Ced, please lead us.
Thank you. I trust that everybody had some rich discussions. I know we did in group number 2. I want to ask someone from group number 1 to come to the microphone and give us an idea about some of the things you guys came up with. And just tell us your name.
Hi, my name's Christina. I was in group number 1, and we tackled worksheet number 1 about how we can make sure more people in our area know about job training programs that are available. And we actually came up with a whole host of different ideas. One of the biggest ones being just trying to post this information out in the community, whether it be through Boys and Girls Clubs or different healthcare organizations, whether it be doctors' offices, hospitals, places like churches, or, even at buses, whether it be, something that's posted on the bus or at the bus stop itself, places like shelters or courthouses, or even something that shows up in the community newspaper. Also, public access you have a great opportunity to be able to get information out there and to a lot of folks as well. Also, we've heard the idea of something called poster posse, where within whatever organization or community group that you're in, if everybody posts at least 3 posters somewhere, you'll end up being seen by a heck of a lot more people than if just one person from that place goes out and posts information. Also, temp agencies or schools. It was also brought up that Scott Haney oftentimes is really good about, talking about different information about things that are upcoming or important issues if they're sent along to him.
Great. Let's give them a round of applause. The second group, which is the group that I was in, Shelley's going to come and talk about our really rich conversation. It was almost a conversation about technology versus some more manual forms of communication.
Thank you. My name is Shelley, and some of the things we talked about, technology, very important in today's environment. A lot of information is dispersed via email. Many people do not have email, but the goal is to get everyone up to speed in email. And so that, for example, if someone's applying for work, that's one of the things you have to put on your resume, for example, your email address, so an employer can contact you as an alternate way to reach you. Another option is, in terms of technology, is internet access, whether it's at work or at home or at the library. So many people do not have a computer at home, but the library has many computers that people can use to open up. They have classes on open up an email account. Another way of getting information out to people would be via radio. People listen to the radio, and or television. People watch television. And as mentioned, some local community papers as well, through where people work. And other alternate options would be, for example, people who are older, the older mature workers, and those without computer access or even literate, they would have information if they go to, say, the Social Security office. Information is planted in a holder of sorts for you to take away brochures or information that's left there. Or at a doctor's office, people go to the doctor periodically for checkups, the dentist, information would be left there. And as mentioned, on the sides of buses, if that's a possibility, at bus stations and things like that. So some of those ideas that our team came up with.
Thank you, Shelley. Group three is responding to the statement, we all have important priorities in our life. What support services should training programs provide to help meet those different needs? And Lee's going to answer that.
All right. Our group talked about a number of different things related to support services that would be helpful to have while you're transitioning or doing a training program. One of the first things we talked about were just a bunch of different safety net services that have kind of combined them into one area. Things such as Dress for Success programs, career-specific clothing. So we actually spoke about, if you're in a CNA program and you're trying to become a CNA, or you're in a health-related field, there are certain types of clothing, whether it's scrubs or specific shoes or comfortable shoes to wear. Whatever it is, there are some needs and requirements for certain career fields as far as clothing is concerned. So connection to things like that, as well as food pantries, gift cards, or things like that can be used to purchase some of that stuff for you while you're in your training program. So a bunch of different safety net services that we talked about. One of the big things we also talked about for assistance is with transportation. So vouchers for buses or trains or something like that, depending on what field you're going into and what type of training program you need and where that actually is or where the work is. If you don't have access to a car or the money for that type of transportation, it's important to be connected with those services. and if the training services or programs can help provide some vouchers to get you on your way, then that can certainly be a help. We also talked about, as sort of a support service, just having programs at manageable times of day or the hours that we have these training programs are at, so that knowing that people are most likely going to need some part-time work or need to support themselves while they're making this transition, just having the programs or training programs at the right times can actually be of service to these groups. And then one of I think one of the really good things that came out of our conversation was an idea of training programs being able to connect you to community groups or even subsidize your membership in places like the YMCA, so that you can, I think Gladys mentioned, just the importance of getting healthy and, going to the gym, being involved in your community. That's where you build a network and connections in order to really help you in your job search. So that coincides really well with training. So those were a few of the different things that we spoke about. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask a representative from Group 4 to come up to respond to the same question. And after that, I'm going to get the mic back to Ted. He's going to wrap up. We're going to all get to enjoy the sunshine. So Group 4. Hi, what's your name? Khadijah.
Thank you. Our group, we looked at the yellow form and some of the things in ways that we can get the message out to people, or the barriers that actually hold people back from employment. And I think the two major things are transportation and healthcare. And I think if we look at those two things, those are the two major things I think that really hold people back, being able to get there on time. So we talked about 211 as being one of your ways to find out about childcare. We also talked about different programs that can offer you vouchers or tokens to get back and forth to your employment. And we also said that, being able to having this discussion again, hopefully here at the library, at least 2 times a year to get the message out to the people is a great way of doing it, as well as at the different community centers that are ran by the city of Hartford. Thank you.
Khadijah, thank you very much. And that actually is a nice way for us to close, to be thinking about how else we might be able to stay involved in this issue. That's a pretty big challenge to suggest that we might be able to reconvene 6 months from now or even earlier in different parts of the city, but it's a challenge that's worth looking at and taking on, I suspect. Let me just offer by way of closing, just a few things I've taken away from this morning. Some of the hopes that I had, I think, that have been realized or are being realized and will be realized. And they include, certainly, no doubt, people got some information here today that they will be able to use. I suspect some insights into how we can do our outreach better and our job training better. Clearly, the stories we found inspiring, those both that everyone heard as well as some that we heard in smaller groups. But beyond the information and the insights and the inspiration, one thing I know I'll take away, and I suspect this is true of everyone, is that sense of connection, that sense of connectedness. And, recalling again that image that Patrick showed us of the fellow out on the limb, we do encourage people to go out on the limb. That is where you'll find the fruit. The one problem about that, though, is that limb might snap. And what can we do to create that network, that support system, so in the event that the limb snaps, others of us are there to support the person who dared to go out there. And so part of what I hope happens today and beyond today is some new relationships have been formed that might continue, and that there be at least one other person that you made a friendship with today, or a contact with today who might be supportive of us in each of our different journeys that we take on. That is my fondest hope, and I trust that we'll be able to realize that hope. I want us to recognize that while it is absolutely worthwhile to do this kind of event again, and I suspect we will in one way, shape, and form, and at some point in the future, it is not easy to pull this off. And the person who probably is principally responsible for having done so is Richard Frieder, and he really deserves our thanks for the really good work that he did. And I'm going to invite him to close today and send us on our way.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate that. I also want to recognize and thank Tricia Barrett, who's standing over here. Tricia worked extremely hard today to, well, not only today, in the weeks previous to make this event happen. So thank you, Tricia. And I also want to thank Tricia's son and her sister. And any other members of your family? I don't know. Okay. Well, in the future, we'll get even more of them involved. But anyhow, I just want to thank you all so much for coming. I think this has been a terrific morning. Thank you to everyone who helped make it happen, all of our presenters today. And how about a big hand for Ted Carroll? I do want to remind you, please, find that green piece of paper in your folder, the evaluation form, and we would really appreciate it if you'd fill it out, and you can just leave it on the sign-in table, the first table you encountered when you arrived today. And finally, the open house is still here. A lot of the folks from the organizations that were part of the open house are still here, so feel free to take some more time out here and talk with them and pick up some more information. So thank you again, and have a great rest of the day.